Welcome to the Matchmaker Mentor Podcast with Arlene Washburn, the show where love industry professionals, coaches, and matchmakers come to learn, grow, and elevate their craft. Each episode dives deep into the art and business of matchmaking, featuring expert insights, real-world strategies, and inspiring conversations designed to help you create meaningful connections and lasting success. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting your journey, this is your space to be mentored, motivated, and moved to make a difference in the world of love. Now here's your host, Arlene Washburn.
Well, thank you so much, Simone Sauter, for being here today. I'm excited for this conversation because you have such an amazing background that I think matchmakers are going to be ecstatic when they hear everything that you have to offer.
Well, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, so you have a very interesting background because we talked briefly and I did a little research. You actually did some work with Match.com and you've worked with matchmakers. And so tell us a little bit about that.
Well, okay, where do I start? So first of all, I also worked as a breakup and divorce coach. So that was my very first business, right? So in 2014, that's when I started the business, and it basically grew from my personal background because my ex left me after a 10 years relationship, completely out of the blue. I was waiting for him to propose to me, and he left and he proposed to someone else. So this was obviously a very challenging time. But there was also my time when I had my spiritual awakening, and then I did a training and I became a coach, and then I started to help women who went through a breakup and a divorce themselves to get out on the other side. But before that, I was working for Match.com, indeed, as a PR manager. I was managing their PR for Europe, for the German speaking market, right? So for Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. And yeah, did their PR side of things. And then I started the first business. And then from that business, I got a lot of media coverage and a lot of podcast interviews. And then I had all like a lot of entrepreneurs asking me, how did you actually do that? And then I started my side hustle in 2018, and that side hustle became my main business. And in this main business, as a PR or publicist, a PR person, I also worked with matchmakers, indeed, to get them on podcasts and into the media.
You know, it's amazing how I literally just had a conversation with someone else and how the circumstances in your life sort of push you into doing certain things, right? And because you have an interest in learning about it and you're going through it and you get to the other side and you're like, oh my God, I got to share this with everybody. And
True.
so many businesses are born that way. And what's really interesting about you is how you've been on the periphery of this industry the whole time and doing PR, which, by the way, before social media became a thing, all these matchmakers were looking for PR reps because they wanted to get on TV and they wanted to do all this. So we got to talk a little bit about that because that hasn't fully gone away either. I think that matchmakers really want visibility. And so going on TV is really important to them, getting on podcasts. So tell us a little bit about your perspective on that.
Okay, so my perspective on, let's start with the TV side of things, because I know a lot of people want to be on TV. And yes, TV is great, but I've been on TV a couple of times myself, also as a breakup and divorce coach. And I do a lot of tracking of all my metrics, Google Analytics, and everything. And every time when I was on TV, I did not see such a spike because people watch you and it sounds interesting to them what you say, but like hardly anybody will look you up, right? So hardly anybody will Google your name or search for you. So I always say the transition from offline to online is very difficult, especially nowadays. So what I recommend matchmakers and business owners in general is to speak on podcasts and to get into the media, right? So to really leverage these big audiences, and at the same time build a website that is AI readable. So this is what I call my visibility triangle. So you have a website that is AI readable, you have content on the website that can be cited by AI, and then you're going to speak on podcasts where you really dive into niche podcasts, very specific podcasts. You speak there with your core topics of impact, as I call them, right? Your speaking topics that really build the bridge between what is it actually that you want to be known for and what is it that your ideal clients are interested in. So this is really the bridge that you need to build with the speaking topic. And then once you have that, once you have the ball up and rolling to speak on podcasts regularly, then I would go and I would reach out to the media on a regular basis so that you can really be everywhere all the time. And people always say like, oh, this takes me so much time and I have so much other things to do. But for me, it's every Tuesday that I do this work for myself. And I recommend my clients as well to pick one day in the week where they just do their PR, just because it has such a massive impact. But now also with AI, everything is going much quicker. I'm working on a system myself, like I call it the Authority OS, right? Authority Operating System, which is like a fully AI-based software where you just set everything up once and then it writes your pitches, it does the research, it does everything for you, and the only thing you need to do is to send the pitches. So this is something that I'm working out for my clients at the moment. So time is not an excuse anymore, so it's really, and if you think about social media and podcasts, with podcasts, people listen to podcasts for years. So I'm not running my first business as a breakup and divorce coach since 2018. It's like 8 years. And I think it was like 2 years back when I received the last email, how can I work with you? Because people listen to interviews that I recorded years back. And then also you create this long form natural language content that is citable by AI, right? Because AI can read it. And that is basically what I recommend. Really go with podcasts and the media and be wise and have a website, especially as a matchmaker, because matchmaking is a high ticket. It is an expensive service and you need to build trust. And if you don't have a website that really represents you as an expert, that has, the right language, the right images, the right tonality, then it's going to be very hard to really make people trust you.
Well, you dropped a lot of nuggets. I mean, not even nuggets, gold nuggets. Okay. So let's go back. First of all, I love what you said about TV, because I had been on a few TV segments, and I know colleagues in matchmaking and in other industries that are on TV all the time, and you get that 15 minutes of fame and then you go away and nobody remembers you. I remember when I got into the matchmaking world, I was following a very famous matchmaker at the time who had a show on TV. Now she walks into a room and nobody knows who she is, because that's just the nature of that particular platform. And to your point, I don't think people go running. It's like they're watching TV and they go running to find you. But I love what you said about podcasts, because I started this podcast not that long ago. And what I find is that people will come to me and join my program and say, I've been listening to you all this time, but they don't subscribe. So you can't be fooled by the subscriptions, because what's happening behind the scenes, like there are podcasts that I listen to that I don't subscribe to. And I do listen to them. And I feel guilty now that I'm a podcaster. I'm like, I gotta go subscribe, but I do listen to them. And for whatever reason, people don't always sign up. But the other thing that you mentioned here is the idea, the concept of this enduring material that's going to be around for a long time. And everybody's like, oh, there are too many podcasts. I really don't think there are enough. I mean, sometimes I'm looking for a topic and a pod, because I love podcasts. If I'm driving, I want to hear a podcast. That's all I do. Or I watch YouTube. That's it. Those are my two entertainment areas and education areas. I really do think that there's so much value in podcasting right now that I love it. And I love to invite people like you that I can learn from. So let's talk a little bit about AI, because there's a lot of AI slop out there, and people are creating videos that are deep fakes that nobody knows. But you coming on my podcast shows the world that you're a real person, that we're having a conversation at the moment. And who knows, AI might change that soon because things are moving so quickly. But let's talk a little bit about that, because I think that that's an important thing. And I know you teach about visibility and AI.
It is one of the most important things, and one of the things that distinguishes you from social media, because everybody can create content with AI and pretend to be someone that they are not. But it doesn't work like this on podcasts, and it doesn't work like this with the media. And this is also, when we come to the topic of AI visibility, why this is so important. Because let's say you want to be recommended by AI. Like if somebody is looking for a matchmaker and you want to be recommended, that AI says, like, hey, Arlene is the one that you should be there. So what you need to do is you need to be on podcasts and you need to be in the media. And why? Because AI does not read the internet like we do, doesn't read the text, right? So it reads the text, but it needs to have trust signals. And trust signals are third-party endorsements. So it was always like that with PR, right? So PR always was like, what I say about myself is advertising, what somebody else says about me is PR. And PR is much more powerful than advertising because somebody else endorses me. And now with AI visibility, or with AI in general, this became even more important because it is impossible to be seen and recommended by AI if you don't have these third-party endorsements. Just because everybody can say anything about themselves. I can say on my website, I am amazing. I can say on social media, I am the expert, whatever. I can say on my own podcast or on my own YouTube how great I am. But if I'm going on your podcast and if I'm speaking like, I don't know, on a stage, or like if I'm being in the media, if I write an article for Business Insider, for example, then people know that I need to be an expert to get there, right? And so does AI, right? So AI needs to have criteria to verify you as an expert. And speaking on podcasts and being in the media, these big third-party endorsements are the number one criteria what AI is looking for. And if you don't have it, AI will not recommend you.
That's really, really important for people to know. What is a good way for someone to pitch themselves then to get onto these podcasts and to get into the media, wherever, to get that third-party endorsement? Because to your point, it's so important. And I get a lot of pitches, but I want to hear it from the expert.
Like, how do you like your pitches? Are they good pitches?
I've had a few that were pretty good, I have to say. And
Okay.
they were so compelling that I literally had to research the person to see if they really were a fit, because their topic may not be appropriate for my audience. But the pitch was so compelling that I felt like I had to. And I'm like, where are these people coming from? I gotta find out. I meant to ask that question and I failed to do so, because that's really important to understand where they're coming from.
Yeah, true. Okay, but coming back to your question, like, how would you pitch yourself? I teach my clients what I call the Publicity Rockstar Method. So this is a 6-step method, because for most of the people, PR is like this abstract thing. And also it's like this by design from the PR industry, because it's a very expensive industry and people always think it's mysterious. You need to have the contacts and everything. So this is why people pay so much money. And I tell you, you should absolutely not pay that much money. But anyway, so 6 steps, and the first step is the rockstar offer. So you need to imagine a star. In the middle is the rockstar offer. I'm a huge rock and heavy metal fan. This is why it's called the Publicity Rockstar Method.
I love that.
In the middle is a rockstar offer, which stands for the foundation. So you need to understand your ideal client. If you don't understand your ideal client, you are not being able to find the right shows, right? Because you need to pinpoint the shows that are actually consumed by your ideal client. Secondly, you need to understand what you want to be known for. If you don't understand what you want to be known for, you're not able to come up with speaking topics. Because again, speaking topics should build the bridge from what you want to be known for and what's actually interesting to your ideal client. And then thirdly, ideally, you have something in place that you have already sold and that you want to sell. So if you're a matchmaker, you sell the service. So you have this in place. So you want to get people through the door. And then if you have a lead magnet or something that people can sign up for, it's even better, because then you can invite people to sign up for that. You can grow your email list, nurture people, and then make them your clients. So this is step number 1. Step number 2 is the audience, which stands for creating your podcast list or creating your media list, depending on what you want to do. That's basically a matter of research. You research podcast shows, you come up with your list, you research media outlets, you come up with your list, find the contact details, and then you have that. Now, the third step is the hit, which stands
Quick
for
question,
grabbing.
Before you go there, with
Yeah.
the research that you do, is there a particular size audience that you are going after with podcasts? Like, we're a very small podcast.
Well, with podcasts, it's not about the size, it's about the niche. So this is really the big difference. With media, you have a lot of divergence loss. That meaning you reach the media and there are a lot of people who will see you, but who are not interested in what you have to say. This is the beauty about podcasts, because podcast show has one dedicated listener. And you need to find the podcast shows that have your ideal client as listener. And then it's not about the size, because if you speak on a podcast with only 500 listeners, those are 500 potential prospects that like potential clients. Or if it's like 2,000, and it's like 2,000 potential clients. Whereas if you, for example, speak on the School of Greatness from Lewis House, who has, I don't know, 1 million downloads, who knows, per month, a lot of listeners, there is also a lot of divergence loss, meaning there are a lot of people who are not interested in what you have to say. So they are more interested in the money topics or the health topics or whatever else he speaks about. So you really want to find niche podcasts with your ideal client and then go and speak there if you want to get clients from there, and you also at the same time get the trust signals that you need for AI.
Okay, that's great.
So step number 3 is the hit. And the hit stands for grabbing the attention of either the podcast host or the editor or the journalist. That looks a little bit different for podcasts and media. So for podcasts, you want to come up with speaking topics that are relevant to the audience of the host and that build the bridge again, right, to what you want to be known for. And these speaking topics, you come up with them once and you always speak about the same topics just on different podcasts. This is also the beauty about speaking on podcasts. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. With media, you need to decide there are 2 roads. First, you can be a featured expert, meaning that you are interviewed by a journalist and the journalist writes a story, quotes you, takes the information that you give the journalist. But then you're not really actually in the driver's seat, right? You're not really in charge of the messaging because the journalist is writing the article. Still, it's great because you get the backlink, or even if you don't get a backlink, just a mention that's good enough for AI, as long as you connect it back on the website, which you need to do in what is called schema markup, but that goes too deep. If you're a featured expert, and the other option is you can be a contributor, meaning you are writing the article for a publication like Business Insider, like Cosmopolitan, like Fast Company, Inc. Magazine. They are always looking for contributors, for people who write the article. And there are a lot of upsides on that. First of all, you are in charge of the message because you write the article. So it's your voice, it's your content, and you're in charge of the message. Secondly, you get this little author bio underneath the article where you can link out to your website or link out to your lead magnet or whatever, which means you grow your traffic, you grow your lead magnet. And with these articles, you get a lot of traffic because they are typically large publications that you write for. And thirdly, they will pay you for it. So that is the third step. So in there, you have to come up with a featured expert. You need to pitch yourself, well, as an expert. And for the contributor pitch, you need to come up with story ideas, like what kind of articles could you write? And then there is a third route as well, which is news tracking, which means there's something going on in the news. And then you could contact the journalist who is writing an article, and then you can say, hey, I can speak on this topic. Like, for example, when I was a breakup and divorce coach, the German Brangelina, right? So they broke up after 10 years and he had a new girlfriend. So this was basically my own situation. And then I was pitching the magazine and saying, hey, this is, my own situation. And I'm working as a breakup and divorce coach now. They interviewed me and they made 3 big articles out of it. And so that was really big. So of course, then I could see the spike in comparison to TV because people can click through. That's the big difference between online and offline. But anyway, now then you have either your speaking topics or your topics for the media. Then the 4th step is the stage, and the stage stands for writing and sending your pitch. Depending on what you pitch, the pitch always looks a little bit different. For podcasts, it is very important that you build rapport so that you show the host, hey, I actually listen to your podcast, I actually know who you are. Because what a lot of people do is they come up with a simple pitch and then they just blast it out to like hundreds of podcasters. But the host can see and feel that this is just not written for him or her, right? So what you really want to do is you want to build rapport. You want to say hi and then the name, right? So it's going to be hi Arlene and not hi there, hi podcast host. That's what a lot of people do, right? A lot of times the pitching for podcasts, the bar is really low because there are so many bad pitches out there. And I speak to a lot of hosts, and you're one of the few who say, I got great pitches. Most say like, yeah, I got awful pitches. Also because a lot of people now just use generic AI and write pitches and think it's a good pitch, but it's not a good pitch. Anyway, but you want to send the pitch in step number 4. And step number 5 is then the performance. And then, of course, that also looks different. Like either you go on in the podcast interview, or you write the article for the publication, or you have a telephone or Zoom interview with a journalist. So that's the performance. And then the 6th step is the promotion. And the promotion stands basically for taking your coverage and convert it in clients, cash, and reputation, right? Because a lot of people think it stops when they had the interview, but it actually doesn't stop there, because you need to do PR on your PR, right? So you need to tell people I was on that podcast. You need to tell people I was in the media, because people will discover you. But then also for the audience that you already have, you want to position yourself as an expert and say, hey, this is where I was interviewed at or wrote for or whatever. And this is basically the 6 steps that you can follow. And then if you do this on a regular basis, and again, I recommend take one day every week and pitch, and then follow up and pitch and follow up and pitch and follow up, like same day every week. And then you have the system. And when you have the system and you do this work ongoing, then you're going to speak on podcasts and you're going to be in the media. So yeah, that's basically.
That is so good. I mean, I can't thank you enough, because you really took the mystery out of it. Because to your point, the PR industry has always been very expensive and very mysterious. And people think I got to get a PR person because it's overwhelming and I'm not going to be able to get into any publication, etc. And everybody wants to have their website with all those logos on it. And sometimes those logos really are not honest, which brings me to the next area that I want to talk about, which is with AI. I mean, I love AI. I got to tell you, I love technology. What I'm finding though, because my superpower is seeing patterns. When I hear people talk, when I read anything that's online, there's an AI pattern that I pick up on, and I've been guilty of it myself. I may have an idea and it's easier to have AI spit it out for you. It's getting so annoying because you lose credibility, you lose your authority. The other thing is now everybody thinks they're an expert, but if you get them on an interview, they can't even answer a question. I didn't send you questions in advance because I've never liked people sending me questions in advance. This is my area of expertise. Let's talk about it. It's more stressful because, but then you know what I know and what I don't know. And it's interesting.
This is also why podcasts and media are so powerful, because you have to show up. Before we had AI, we could trust the content somehow, because the person who published the content, you assumed that this person, or the ghostwriter, whatever, wrote the posts. So that you assume that this came out of the head, out of the brain of this person. But now on social media, like I'm hardly on social media. I mean, like I'm on LinkedIn, but I hardly post there. I don't get any visibility there anymore, and I just can't read all this stuff anymore because it's all AI stuff. It's what you're saying. There is nothing creative about it anymore, and there are suddenly people talking about, like in my field, like PR and GEO, and when they recommend, yeah, send a press release over the wire, and press releases don't work, not for small business owners. Yes, they work for like a big corporations, or if you have if you have data, right? If you have a lot of data, then they work. But for the average small business owner, the press release doesn't work. And I'm just reading all of these things. It's really tiring, you know, but that's also why I love to speak on podcasts, because you can have a conversation and you can actually talk about what you're able to talk about, right? And you can shine as the expert, whereas you can't shine anymore online, because everybody can, you know, say like, oh, you know, I'm an expert. And then, you know, Claude Fable wrote it, you know.
Well, it's interesting how you put that, because it's on both sides. So it's the person who's reading it and thinking that maybe it's real, but then it's the real people who really know their stuff reading it and saying, oh my gosh, it's like you almost tune it out, but you also stop producing content yourself because you think there's so much garbage out there. I personally am not going to stop producing, because I think my message is so important, because I'm so passionate about the industry that I'm in. But to your point, I do hear a lot of content out there that just is not accurate. And frankly, AI is great, but I work with AI all the time. That's how I'm able to push out more stuff than the average person. However, I have to constantly correct it and say, wait a second, no, not that. And then it'll be like, oh, you're right, because it interprets a lot of things in a very generic way. I love what you're doing, and I want the audience to know more about this because I'd love to get folks to go to your school, which is fantastic. I spent a little bit of time in there, not enough time because there aren't enough hours in the day, but when I get a chance, I go in there and I think it's really, really good. So if you can tell people about that.
Well, so it's basically a free school, and in the school, I publish content on a regular basis on how you can actually get visible in AI. I talk a lot about PR, podcasting, media, AI visibility, GEO, generative engine optimization, meaning how can you optimize your website that AI can actually read you, cite you, and yeah, there are weekly videos that I, share with a little artifact for people who don't know what an artifact is, like a design slide thing so that it's also really visual that people understand because it's a complex topic, but people love it. People like they through the visualization of things they understand better how it actually works and what they need to do. So yeah, and I love it. So that's basically where I hang out a lot, where people ask questions. Feel free to join. It's a free school.
Yeah, how do people join?
It's on school, like on the platform school, and it's called the AI Visibility Lab. So either you can search for that when you sign up for school, and you can also go to the discovery and search for the AI Visibility Lab, or just for Simone Sauter, and then you see all my communities. And then the free one is the one that you can join.
I'm curious about something. What made you go into that platform school, which I'm seeing a lot of experts
Yeah.
do now, instead of using Facebook groups, which I'm not a fan of, but I'm just curious, what made you do that instead?
Yeah, so Facebook, I don't like Facebook at all, but
Me
school
too.
really brings everything together. I personally believe through all of this AI that people are looking more for human connection. So when I think back, I'm in the industry now for 12 years. In the beginning, when people I also sold a lot of courses, and people loved courses because you could learn at home and you could study it yourself. But now, since Corona, people were really isolated. And I think that since Corona, people are also looking for more connection. And because so many people bought courses, but they never went through them, they never finished them because it's so hard to do this on your own. You have to be really disciplined. And inside of school, you can sell a single course and then you sell a community around it so that people can talk to each other about the course so that they don't feel like lonely anymore. Or you could even say you sell the course and then you add in another layer, like another tier that is then weekly calls so that people could get weekly support. And you do this for like $49 per month or $99 or $200, whatever per month. And then people can join the calls and you can talk to them and you can create monthly recurring revenue, right? So the school platform really gives you a lot of freedom to bring everything together. And then you can have calls inside of school. So you don't need Zoom. You can have webinars inside of school, and you can have like up to 10,000 participants, which when you think about Zoom, it will cost you hundreds of dollars if you do this with Zoom. They are also hosting your videos. You can directly upload the videos. You don't have to host them anywhere else. Or I record them with Loom and I just add the Loom link and they just host it. So this is all
Love it.
included in the cost. So it's basically one platform that does everything for you. So
Yeah, no, I'm really enjoying it, and I was just curious. I had a feeling that you were trying to get away from Facebook groups, which I don't like. I'm not a fan
yeah.
of Meta. And Hermosi is a co-owner of that platform. I'm big on him and his wife. I think they really have some great content out there. So thank you for that insight. Well, is there anything you want to share with this community that we haven't talked about? You have so much to offer. I know LinkedIn is a big thing. I don't know how much time you're spending there. That's my social media home away from home is what I like to say is LinkedIn. I don't enjoy any other social media platform.
Yeah, no, me neither. So I am on Instagram and Facebook, but I'm not really there. I'm there, but not really there. So the only
Right.
platform where I'm really at is like LinkedIn, where I talk with people a lot, or they reach out to me, and not so much posting. But what is important to understand about LinkedIn is if you create content for your website, like a blog post, the blog post should be structured in a very specific way so that it's readable by AI, right? So you should have an article schema markup and an FAQ schema markup, which is a snippet of code on the blog post, which is easy to do with plugins. But if you have this blog post, you should also republish it on LinkedIn because LinkedIn has a very high domain authority. And then when you have the content there, it is easier to be picked up by AI because the domain authority is so high and the content is great. So this is what I recommend you to do. If you have website content, republish it as an article, not as a post. So because if you put it as a post, I think only 12% of posts are being picked up by AI, whereas it was like 47% or something. I can't remember the exact number of LinkedIn articles. That's really important to understand. So, and I also think as a matchmaker, due to the fact that you're looking for successful people, due to the price tag, of course, so you cannot advertise to the average person, that LinkedIn is the best platform, because I don't like Facebook at all. I'm not on TikTok, but I also feel this is like not like really for the younger generations. I personally think that LinkedIn is the best platform because you have professionals, you have high earners, and you can build your authority there. It gives you all the space to build a professional profile, right? It gives you way more space than Instagram or any other platform, because you can have the, your title, you have the banner, you have the about section, and your experience, everything is on there. You can also have all the recommendations of your former clients on there. It's really a great platform, and this is also the platform that I strongly recommend for matchmakers. One of the biggest things for all the business owners out there is to build trust, right? So we are on a trust recession, but for matchmakers even more so, for two reasons. You're looking for love, for a relationship, for a partner, for another human being. This is one. So we need to have a lot of trust when I come to you and I say, like, I'm happily married, but if I came to you and say, like, I'm looking for a man like this and this and that, then I need to trust you, because this is not something that I'm giving to someone and I'm like, oh, I don't know, I'm giving it a try. This is like, I give it a try if I want to buy a $50 course, right? I'm not going to give it a try when I hire a matchmaker. So this is why trust is really important. Well, and secondly is the price tag. It is a high investment and people need to trust, because there are a lot of people who have been burned with high ticket before. They spend a lot of money on a service and they did not get what they wanted. So for matchmaking, it's the same thing. So they need to trust you as a human, and they need to trust you to think that you're capable of finding a partner. And I mean, there is no guarantee, obviously, but those are the two things why I think that matchmakers need to build extra trust. Let's put it like that.
Yeah, I agree. That's what we sell. We sell trust in our process for matchmakers. I always say us. I'm not a matchmaker, but I always put myself in there because I'm part of the community. What are your thoughts on YouTube before we close out?
Yeah, so YouTube is another great platform. If you want to invest in social media, invest in LinkedIn and YouTube. And YouTube, because it's long form content, natural language content, and it can read the transcript, like the what's it called? The subtitles, right?
Yeah.
And with that, you have a lot of content that AI can cite as well.
Love it, love it, love it. Oh my gosh, this has been so amazing, Simone. I am so grateful. And you obviously know your stuff. You have this incredible background that just lends so perfectly. I train professional matchmakers, and I like to recommend that people continuously learn. But learning from someone like you who has this connection, all these little things that all sort of fit, is such a perfect recommendation. So I highly recommend that people go check out your content, go join your school. We'll include the links in the description. And thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
If today's episode resonated, make sure you're subscribed to the Matchmaker Mentor podcast on YouTube and Spotify. New episodes are released weekly and are designed to support professional matchmakers who want to operate with clarity, structure, and integrity. You can also join our monthly industry brief, On the Radar, for ongoing insight into what's changing behind the scenes in professional matchmaking. Until next time, stay grounded in your standards, intentional in your systems, and committed to doing this work at a higher level. I'm Arlene Washburn, and this is the Matchmaker Mentor Podcast.